What is buffer time? What is buffer time? Is what buffer time?
Greetings, Buffer Timers. Here we are to finish up our run of talking about all of Star Trek's movies. It has been 13 weeks, and I think every one of us is just done with this project at this point. And we want to move on to something way more interesting to all talk about. So I was taking a walk on the beach, and I came upon these rocks in the sand. I don't know what 86JJ means, but it seemed relevant here.
How fortuitous.
How many pairs of footprints were there in the sand?
I don't know. It's clearly a threat.
I don't know. I don't know what 86 means. It's I assume it's a term of endearment. But let's introduce ourselves before we get too off track. I'm Dustin from Best of Trek.
Hey everybody, Robbie Sherman, Conversations with Robbie Sherman. Happy to be here.
I'm Ren from Ren Rants.
I'm Windgrace and/or Josh from Windgrace Project.
My name is Vanessa, and I host a YouTube channel called I Love Bad Star Trek.
You do.
I am Montgomery Scotty of Opinions No One Cares About.
Aye.
Wonderful. So, a thing that, I usually start these shows with our Cambot showing the title screen. I did not know this movie had a title screen until, not even this playthrough, but going through Trek Core's pictures to get stuff for this week. And this thing exists at the end of the end credits.
Okay.
It's the only Star Trek movie to not have a title.
Do we get to even call it like a title screen? It doesn't go. It's the end. Like it's the end screen. Like it's the end logo.
So that's the surprise end credit scene of this one. It's like, ooh, teasing us for more.
Oh.
Speaking of a teaser, I wouldn't... Go ahead, Scott.
So the motion picture now starts on Paramount with almost 3 minutes of just a random starfield before the movie starts. And now this movie just ends, the last movie ends with what is basically an end plate. I don't think
Charisse, you are welcome to join us, by the way. We have expanded. We are now in full 1080 HD, and we have 15 slots. So, we would love to expand and have more people on. Anyway, so there was a little piece of, I'm not going to call it news, this is highly a rumor at this point, that there's another Star Trek series in production, and it's animated. I will believe it when I see it, given that Prodigy was just unofficially canceled, which is a surprise to absolutely no one. And we just wrapped up Lower Decks. So unless it's like a spin-off of Lower Decks, which would make all kinds of sense where they left it, I don't buy it. I don't buy that we just finished a run of animated series and one of them got unceremoniously let go. That it happens.
There was a little bit more as to what it's supposed to be that came out. And supposedly the title that's been registered and leaked or whatever is called Star Trek Scouts. And it's supposed to be another younger children's animated thing. Like 12-year-old type of era. But
Star Wars. You did it.
It's like pre-academy. So it's like kids that are preparing for going into the academy eventually.
So it's like...
Why not call it cadets then?
Because you're not even technically a cadet at that point.
Also,
You're like you're in like a little military club at that point. You're not even affiliated. You're like the weirdos in my town that have a military club.
like, I've been watching through DS9 again, and my impression of like Starfleet Academy education is essentially like you go through like your typical elementary school, high school, whatever education, and then you decide whether or not you want to apply to Starfleet Academy. There's not like a prep school stage. So why they would cook that up, I don't understand.
God, Vanessa, I want a
Yeah,
Starfleet
don't
Saved
take
by the
that.
Bell so bad now. Like, I just thought about that. Like, these people went to fucking high school, and I've never gotten to see that.
I just want to support Sharice's
Time travel.
idea of Star Trek Muppet Babies.
Yes, Starfleet Babies, and it's just all our original cast, just in an in like a preschool. You never see the instructor's head; it's always out of frame. Just having adventures.
That's
Imagination.
Sort of that's how I perceived Lower Decks, to be honest, is sort of that.
Okay.
When your world looks kind of weird and you wish that you weren't there.
Does Kirk negotiating with the little people badly in the intro do anything for the movie at all?
If they weren't trying to also set up the fact that he's captain for so long, he's really great and over it and now wants to be an admiral, to then show us how crap he is at his job at the very beginning is like whiplash.
Like they did at the beginning of the last one.
Yeah.
It's kind of crapping away missions.
I hate that stuff. Like, don't do that to me as a viewer. Don't show me him like having obvious growing pains, and then have another scene of just pure ennui, ennui. What ennui? That's how you pronounce it. Ennui, like just pure ennui, just bullshit. Just it's nonsense. I hate it so much. I hate the fact that they just want to play around with my emotions. You know, like giving me a completely different idea of how this movie's going to play moment to moment.
Like, let's compare it to Archer's mishap with the tree and Porthos pissing on it and him. Like, it's that level of terrible diplomacy. Like, Kirk seems so ill-prepared for this exchange. Like, all he did was come in. It's like he didn't even study the night before about anything about this culture, knew anything about these people. Or these creatures, and like the animosity between them, no studying whatsoever. Like in a like how I understand Star Trek is like Spock would have briefed Kirk about the culture. They would have, known something about this artifact. They would have known something about this this peace talk that they're attempting, because a peace talk is like a huge thing. And that's like one of the most important things that Starfleet does, is to broker peace between two worlds. And then like for him to just show up to be like, I just have a thing. You can just take the thing. Just take the thing. And that's it. That's all he had. It was just such pitiful ass diplomacy. And it's like, is this Star Trek, or is it just, we're just giving lip service to the diplomacy part?
And this from the guy who, in the original timelines referred to as a stack of books with legs, and then this one's like the only genius level repeat offender in the Midwest.
And like the jokiness of it coming immediately at the beginning of the movie, like we have no stakes beforehand of anything at all. It works against like what you want out of the movie and like what you think of from a Star Trek property and idea. It's really
Like,
bad intro.
Does this guy sound like the leader of the fleet? He is in the flagship. This is the first guy to make inroads with this culture, and it's like, does that sound like him?
No, it feels like he's right where he was. They just took him out of the bar in the first movie and said, go diplomat. And this is the same guy. Like nothing's evolved since then. But then 2 minutes later, we're supposed to believe that he's applied to be a vice admiral, which, do you apply for a promotion in Starfleet? Or do they just give it to you? And I don't know.
Yeah, two things in what you just said. So the very next scene is an analogy to his original bar talk with Pike, where you go straight into him and Bones, having Bones being basically Pike in that conversation and make him reevaluate stuff.
That kind of works though. Like the Kirk and Bones dynamic.
That's one of the things that really works in this movie, and I forgot the other point that I was going to play off what you said.
Every
Like,
bit of casting.
I
Beautiful.
I looked up like why they put the title card at the end, and it has to do with like not cluttering up the beginning.
Oh,
And it's
No.
like could
Wow.
they put the title card after this scene or something? I
great
don't know.
success.
Yeah.
Sharice,
Same to
your
this movie.
Betazoid powers are you are in tune like Loxana there.
Yeah, I will say I do the one and only thing that did work for me in that scene was the forced perspective of them looking like large creatures and then being small creatures was funny. It did make me chuckle. And then sigh, the weariest sigh, but it did make me chuckle a little bit first.
Like I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the comic effect of the aliens' size and everything. How they're little like gremlins or something. I just like, why are they so unreasonable? Like they just went
Yeah.
from 0 to 100, and then like
Yeah. But it looks like he's being attacked by a bunch of angry puppies.
It literally
Yeah.
felt like a scene from Futurama, not
It
from Star
did.
Trek.
It really did. Everything about it. It felt like it belonged in Futurama, which in Futurama it would have been at home there, but here
Yeah.
it definitely felt like
Yeah, and that's
Put
what
Zapp
that's
Brannigan
the
in that
benefit.
scene.
unnecessarily slapstick.
But that's the benefit of being a parody of science fiction tropes, not being one of the flagship science fiction programs of the 20th century. Like, when you make a movie like this, you have expectations going into this. And to do this, like, at the very beginning of your film, just a complete joke thing, and it just leads into a scene that doesn't make sense with its character motivations, it's such a letdown. It's so irritating. It ruins the obvious comedy of what's happening, because anybody who understands the dynamics of comedy, modern day comedy, understands what would make that funny in theory. But when you're breaking that down with the scenes that precede it, it's such a fucking headache. I hate this movie.
like visually it looks a lot like the Klingon court. I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know why they felt the need to repeat that visual beat.
I do. It's kind of weird because I feel like it sets just completely the wrong tone for the movie. Like, it'd be one thing if this movie was generally like overall a pretty lighthearted movie, but generally it's also kind of a dark bummer for a lot of it. And so you're like, okay, like, why is this giving like, you know, weird, quirky comedy vibes, but most of the movie is just kind of like bleak and weird?
Because the last movie started this way, I think. It was when it started with another away mission that had nothing to do with the main.
Oh yeah, it did.
Yes.
Yep, another
Yes.
slapstick away mission.
Yes, and
It's
that's
like somebody
like
just
why
told Justin Lin, you know, do what JJ did.
that's like why this movie feels so similar to the last. Like it's like they took a template and they just sort of repeated it here, just swapping a few key things.
Yeah, I'm sorry to disappoint chat. This is not going to be a happy review. But what I'm going to say, there are moments in this movie that I really like. I think it has the best single moments out of all of the JJ movies. But at the same time, it's also the most hard to follow mess of a plot of any of the Star Trek movies. So it's got some decent highs and some unforgivable lows. But we'll unpack that a little bit more here. We've only gotten one question in 15 minutes. So, is Yorktown a great feat of engineering or an absolute mess?
Oh, we can do both.
It's a choice.
Escher Station?
They should have called it that, really. Space Station Escher.
I get that they're trying to show off their fancy visual effects, but nothing about this screams to me like that it fits in this established universe. Like, I don't know why they needed to go so above and beyond. And then the whole placement of the station was just another thing, too. Like, we built this amazing feat of brilliance that's unlike anything that's ever been seen before, right by this cloud of unexplored space. Nothing can
What
go
could
wrong.
go wrong?
It feels like a stand-in for Earth. Like it's just, and then they were like, well, we just, need to make it a station instead of a planet. So we're not like, Spock explained it to where it could cause diplomatic tension, which actually, like, I actually appreciated some exposition in that direction. But it just seemed like they're a stand-in for Earth because this is the thing that they were saving this time.
We need to have some kind of manufactured stakes. They need to destroy some kind of human settlement. So here is one that you're supposed to care about, but don't. Because you don't.
It is some
Yeah.
cool CGI, and I will say that's probably one of the movie strengths as a whole. It really, where it used CGI, it did it almost all well.
It does
Yeah,
look
but
like
real-
all these movies look really nice. They're
Mhm.
beautiful movies. I despite the lens flares and the questionable like shaky cams and Dutch angles, like they are like slick and nice looking movies. It's just that's not enough.
I would really like to commend whoever was capable of just pulling that off. Like as a person who understands on some level animation and like creating things in CGI, like that's an achievement for most visual effects artists. Like to pull this off, a team of visual effects artists can say they did something interesting, but I also think it suffers from the same problem in that it feels a little hollow when you consider the context around it. Like this is just a hollow film that has like very little things creating interest for the viewer, even though it's filled with technical achievements throughout it and it occasionally has character moments that are good.
Yeah, it would have been nice to get an exploration of this a massive thing they created.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, more than
spend
just
time
camera
there
movements.
aside from the end, fight through the floaty tubes or whatever. Like actually live
like-
in this thing they made.
Slightly overly elaborate, I would say. I don't think it needs that many buildings. I would assume they could have filled it in with more green space. Just aesthetically, it just looks like Manhattan just pulled spun around. Yeah.
Double Helix Manhattan.
Yeah, and like I was
That's
saying yesterday, it's
exactly.
perfect if you're either a voyeur or an exhibitionist because someone can spy on you from like 6 different directions.
Ah, man. What a creepy place to live. My word.
Is
The
this
rent
being
must be
the
crazy.
Is
Good.
this
Sorry.
being a second movie in a row about Spock and Uhura fighting just a normal couple thing, or annoying as a plot thread?
I thought it was implied that they had like broken up, and I was like, okay. You want to do that off screen and not add anything to the plot? Sure.
I'll be honest, it's one of those things that my eyes glazed over with. Like,
Indescript
I
noises.
tried.
Yeah.
I tried so hard to pay attention to this movie. I did. I sat down. I was like, okay, this is my 5th time watching this movie. I will retain it this time. I will watch this. Nope. I it's like this. I don't know. It's like I sit down to watch this movie, and then 2 hours have passed, and I like vaguely recall a couple scenes, but overall, I can't tell you what happens in this like. I just don't absorb it. I don't absorb the story.
It reminds me a lot of the relationship between Michael Burnham and her partner. How like you would sort of hint that there was tension, but they would never talk about it. And then it would just sort of magically resolve. And the only exposition we get about this conflict is from Bones making assumptions. And then Spock just sort of blankly staring back at him. Like that could have been fleshed out a little bit more, but the set pieces are too big to really dig into that too much in this movie. Like gotta do another action sequence.
Yeah, because a lot of that between Bones and Spock is happening on this kind of grayish, like washed out planet where like the brightest bits of color were like when they're marching the Enterprise crew around, or that one weird round thing that kind of seemed like mushrooms or something that was in the middle. I don't know.
Or
What
like
the hell
that
was
blue
that?
mine place where the blue scene where they had the motorcycle or whatever. It was
Well,
interesting.
the crystals thing, Robbie, is kind of explained.
Yeah.
It's the same thing that trapped him and Chekhov. It's one of Jala's traps. I don't know how they set it up so that he could use the bike to do it, but
Outright.
that's the best
Okay.
answer. It's some kind of tech that she had that they must have retrofitted into the bike that we just didn't talk about.
They give you no way of like getting context from the computers they're working on, and that drives me insane because it's just people like pressing buttons. You don't have any clue what they're doing with the buttons. This movie isn't good enough to get over that hump, you know? It's not Batman the Animated Series. It can't just be pressing buttons that are unnumbered, you know? Like, show me something. We are in Star Trek. I want to see the computer in a clear way. Like,
Yeah. It's not like it was on USS Callister where they're like, oh, just push the buttons, it'll just do whatever.
this was a better movie, I wouldn't care, but you gotta give me more. You know, this has to be a better movie to pull that move.
Speaking of better movies, that's like, let me just throw this statistic out there. This movie cost $184 million to make. To put that into perspective, that is all of the TOS movies plus almost all of Generations combined. This is not worth that price tag. When you remember that, I mean, granted there's inflation, but not like this, that Wrath of Khan was made for 12, count them, $1 million. $184 million.
How much of that percentage was the actors' salaries? I'm curious.
Oh,
I'm
for
not.
this?
I haven't
question.
looked into it. I know that like they kept getting more every movie, and that's kind of part of what made it fall apart. But
Well, yeah, their prices probably went up after like at least the first one was a hit. So
Not that their cutting into the budget would have made this better, or like, you know, like if they had a
Yeah.
bigger budget in spite of the actors or whatever, it would have been amazing. But I'm just curious. But yeah.
Yeah, it's clearly not a money problem with this movie. Like they
No, but
they had the resources. You did.
after you've spent 10 minutes watching people running away from, fireballs in the cells exploding and machine, like at a certain point you just want to take a moment to spend time with the characters because the spectacle isn't connecting with you anymore. It's just kind of blank noise in the background. But there are precious few good character moments, especially when they get on the planet and they have a couple unique pairings. Like we get
That's one.
the adventures on the planet, I guess, are probably the better character moments.
Since I didn't get to answer about how I felt on the Uhura and Spock relationship, you know, I have the scale that goes from 1 to I want to bang my head against the wall, and it's about a good 3/4 of the way up to I want to bang my head against the wall because you don't get any actual understanding of the conflicts between them, and they're just out like in very dangerous situations, and then by the end of it, it's just like, I love you, and I want to have babies with you because my species isn't as populated as it once was. You know why. You'll figure it out. Yeah. Like, it's just horseshit. Like, I hate this.
yeah,
I don't think there was major reshoots.
I think they did rewrites before they shot it, like because I don't think Simon Pegg originally was as involved as he
Yeah,
became.
that is true. He got brought on very late in the writing. But also like I appreciate that he took the time to really dive into canon and try to understand what he was writing and write in some of the little things that call back, like let me think of season 3 of Enterprise. The
Zindi.
The Zindi.
yeah.
They mentioned the Zindi.
Yeah,
in
and
this.
that's one of my favorite parts of this is the direct. It's been one of my favorite parts of all the Kelvin stuff is the direct linkage to Enterprise era stuff. Regardless of how you feel about that show, just having it involved feels nice. The little exploration of the Mako is like kind of that midpoint between the end of Enterprise and the start of TOS. Like, what happened to those militaristic people would have been a great exploration here if it was more than a 2-minute view screen that was kind of glossed over.
Or like he could have been
Yeah.
a Florida. He could have been a Floridian that lost some family or
Yeah.
something, you know.
It was just references, and we didn't get to really spend time with it. It's like, oh, hey, I fought in the Romulan War anyways. Let's not talk about that.
No, I'm
Speaking of
pissed.
losing things, did we destroy the Enterprise in this movie just because they destroyed the Enterprise in the third TOS movie?
Probably.
Because this just feels like it comes out of nowhere. The first time I saw this, this was the last movie I rented at a Red Box. And I got to this point, and I'm like, we just destroyed the Enterprise in the first 30 minutes of the movie, and I don't really want to watch the rest, and I just returned it. And then I didn't see it for a couple more years.
Fair.
It just felt like they were trying to establish the sort of mindlessness and the ferocity of this villain and the fact that they're stuck on this planet. I think that could have been accomplished a bit differently, but it felt very Saving Private Ryan level violent on the Enterprise. And I don't know, it just felt like no build up, no nothing, just like mega violent right at the start.
Yeah, and it
And
was probably
honestly,
just too. Sorry, go ahead.
I must be lagging a little bit. I'm sorry. Honestly, it's so I literally forgot that happened. Like from the previous time I've watched this movie. And it's amazing that the destruction of the flagship of the fleet is as forgettable as everything else that happens.
I felt nothing.
Yeah, that's basically it. I felt nothing aside from the fact that it was supposed to show just how powerful and disturbing these guys were, but I don't think it really accomplished that either.
Guaranteed, I
made
still have a Blockbuster card somewhere if I dig for it.
You have to dig deep, buddy. I really don't like the Enterprise being killed off so early in the movie. And when I saw it in theaters, I just remember thinking, like, really? Like, we're doing that this early in the movie? Like, what? It was just a confusing thing. And I remember after the movie, me and my buddy just didn't say anything about it. And that says as much about how little of an impact it leaves on a viewing level.
It feels like the same emotionally empty beat as like the Death Last movie. Like, let's just redo this thing from Wrath of Khan, but there's nothing behind it that makes you feel anything. Yet they spent 20 minutes watching it just get picked and pulled apart. But I don't care about this ship like I cared about the original Enterprise. There's no
That shit's kind of
investment.
It didn't feel like they did everything they could to save it either.
That's true.
To be honest, like, I don't know. I just feel like other crews would have really pulled together and made sure that, you know, things were reinforced or sealed off or something, like anything. They just looked so, and this goes for JJ verse in general. They just look like they're so flying by the seat of their pants 100% of the time and trying to catch up with the problem that they're facing versus like being proactive about it at all.
Mhm.
Like, we're just reacting to a thing we can't handle.
My
At
pitch
this
for the
point,
fourth
I think-
movie does involve whales.
But it's Cetacean Ops or something, right?
No, it's they Back to the Future 2, the original Star Trek 4, and just put the Kelvinverse people. They go back in time, but they have to do things behind the scenes of the actual Star Trek 4.
Well, that could be fun.
Hopefully they still have a whale biologist.
And then they find the whale that Spock mind melded with, who gave the codes, Starfleet codes, to the Romulans.
Still a better villain than Krall.
Oh my god. Yes. We're gonna get to Crawl. Let's not even dig into that literal can
Crawl
of
the Warrior
worms
King?
just yet.
I wish I had an inhaler for this episode. Oh man, I'm just like, I'm so heavy. Like every time we just even mention little things about this fucking travesty, like.
Because the follow-up question is, did we really have to destroy the Enterprise twice in the same movie? I mean, we see the thing crash, and then Kirk and Chekhov go do the most Kirk Chekhov thing I can ever think of. They just flip the fucking thing over and destroy it again.
I can't believe I liked this in theaters.
Like,
what the fuck was I thinking?
I just
How high
remember-
was I then?
In the TOS movies, it was like such an event when the Enterprise crashed. And same with the TNG movies when the Enterprise crashed, even though I'm ambivalent about TNG movies in general. Just like it was a real emotional, heavy thing to finally lose the ship. But with this, it was like so sudden and so quick. And these characters don't seem to their lives exist mostly outside of the ship. So there's no real attachment to the Enterprise when it finally burns again.
Yeah, the ship is just a thing in these movies. It's not a character. It's not a home. It's not anything other than just part of the plot and or set dressing.
It's not Kirk's girlfriend, even platonically.
Okay, why can't we have romance with the Enterprise? I know it's old-fashioned bullshit and it involves a lot of heteronormative crap, I get it. But at least it was something. At least you made the Enterprise something that you can feel for emotionally. These people think of the Enterprise as a emotional attachment of themselves. Like they're always talking about how much they love the Enterprise. I mean, in next generation, that's a major thing. You talk about how much you love the Enterprise. You're Geordie. You love touching buttons on the Enterprise and walking around doing stuff. You love it, you know. And they don't love the Enterprise in these movies.
No, our main characters
care.
That's because
Not
this
at
isn't
all.
Doctor Who, and even though there isn't Idris in it.
They're always trying to leave. Like half the characters this movie are trying to get promoted or move on to something else.
Oh man,
You know,
yeah. Why? Who cares? Like, this is Star Trek. I thought the Enterprise was our home base, and we love it, and we like being there. It's a fun time.
Hi, Mr.
We're clearly-
Captain.
We're clearly not having a fun time here. But let's talk about one of the positive things, and we've talked a little bit about it. Is the character dynamic between Spock and Bones one of the only good things about the movie?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, that was
character
really
dynamic, yeah. The
Yes.
hair, the wig Spock's
Bones
wearing.
and Spock in general are some of the best things about the JJ movies, honestly. Like, their chemistry is really fun, and in this movie, it's just to the max. It's great casting for both characters. Yeah, I love them.
Carl
You know
Urban's
what? You
my
get a
man
couple of
crush.
boys, and you put them together, and they talk, and that's Star Trek, okay? I'm glad they finally figured out that one part of Star Trek. You know, you got some boys together, and they're talking about their feelings. You get a moment like that, that's Star Trek. That feels good. It's got something.
Star Trek's all about
Not
chilling
entirely.
on the planet with your boys.
And to actually get to see Bones doing actual medical surgery and not on a torpedo this time. That was nice.
Yes.
I thought of two things. One, the huge piece of shrapnel coming out of Spock's body. How is he surviving that? And
He's a
two,
They
why not
explain
talk
that
about
his heart is.
Oh yeah, right.
Starts where his
Why
liver
not
should
talk-
be.
Why not talk about the relationship issues at this moment? I don't
Yeah,
know.
Bones has been divorced. He's probably got some wisdom for how to avoid that fate.
Would it have been better if he said, just don't let her take your bones?
Unfortunately, Mr. Captain, I would say Carl would have made a great James Bond. He's a little past his prime now.
Well, he's playing Johnny Cage now, so.
I don't know.
Yeah, like
I
that-
mean, he's pretty
that also
tough
seems
and
weird to
grizzled
me.
as Billy Butcher. I could see him doing Bond.
Bond is a little bit, middle to, 40s, 50s kind of guy to me.
Yeah.
You know what? I don't fucking care. He'd be the sexiest James Bond ever. Carl
I wouldn't mind
Urban
to
is
see
James Bond.
Then we better get
aged
another
up
Dredd.
Bond.
He'd be like
Well,
the
yeah.
most
Yeah.
believably
Yeah, we need
violent. I
those,
feel
yeah.
like he's got really good fight choreography, at least in The Boys.
Yeah, but this movie
Oh,
already
man.
has a guy who supposedly isn't right for Bond.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
how does now that we've seen all three of these movies, how do these characters of the big three compare to TOS's?
Oh, I got things to say about that.
Because I really enjoy both for different reasons, but
I think this cast, given the right vehicle and time to actually do something other than just surface level, could become something like really good. Like
I agree.
Robbie, like
Perfect recasting.
you said, like do a series, even a limited series or something with these people,
Yeah.
so they actually have time to be characters and not just do a couple of things in a movie. Because that's the biggest benefit we had in the older Star Trek things, is we had already grown with these people forever. So the movies are more just extensions and growths of characters we knew. We're starting from scratch here and then skipping like from event 5 years to another event and not getting any of that growth they tried to make us believe happened.
Yeah. I think this movie in particular highlights, for me, I could be wrong, and please call me out if I am. This movie definitely helps to highlight the relationship between Kirk and Bones and the relationship between Spock and Bones. But I almost think that over the course of the three movies, the relationship between Kirk and Spock, which is supposed to be like the emotional linchpin of this crew, is not entirely up to snuff, like especially at like the TOS level. I feel like it comes just a little bit short.
No, I think you're right about that. Honestly, especially in this movie, I feel like they really didn't get to interact that much, and when they did, it was kind of just like perfunctory mission stuff. We didn't get a lot of Kirk and Spock boyfriends action, which is what everyone watches them for.
it was just that scene in the elevator and how they revisited that question later. That was essentially their storyline, was possibly leaving Starfleet or leaving the ship or whatever.
I'll go to bat for every bit of casting in the Kelvin first. I mean, they just knocked it out so hard.
Except
I wish
Benedict
they had.
Cumberbatch.
Oh no! I mean,
Well, all the villains are well
take a
cast.
baseball bat to that idea.
Their
okay?
characters are just terrible.
Yeah, like they write these things terribly. Like there's no tone, like balance for anyone. I hate how jokey some things are, and then one moment there's just seriousness, just pure melodrama. That I don't understand these films.
Like it would be
least...
cool. Like it would be cool if. Oh, sorry. It would be cool if they fleshed out the Spock and Uhura thing more, but they didn't. So like, to like neglect the central relationship in the show entirely, it leaves it feeling very like that. To me, is the biggest character, like the most important characteristic of TOS is that bond, and it's missing. Like if you're not going to do that, then replace it with something equally as meaningful, and they're not doing that.
Yeah,
fair.
I wanted the Spock and Uhura thing when I was younger because I was a dumb young man, probably projecting a little bit. But at the same time, I think even then I kind of was just frustrated by it. I think I understood that it didn't capture like what that should have if you're going to go that far with those characters. I mean, there's some flirtation in the original TOS, but to create a trauma bond between these two over Spock's planet being completely destroyed, like disappeared, like that's a thing you have to flesh out. You can't just make these little like CW melodrama scenes out of them. Like that's crazy. Wow.
It's
exactly.
Dawson's Creek in space.
Yeah, exactly. Because they bring in this relationship in the first movie, and it's a novel idea because this is an alternate timeline, so some things are going to happen differently. But then they don't put in the effort to make it work. I feel like, especially in this one, there's a little more attention paid to the obvious friendship between Sulu and Chekhov than whatever's going on with Spock and Uhura.
They just used it for the plot point in this one. Basically, they're like, "Oh yeah, they're together. Let's come up with an unobtainium necklace that we could use to track her down, to move the plot along."
Speaking of Sulu and things, I hadn't even put this down as a question, but I know George Takei had certain feelings about this. But how do we feel about the revelization that Sulu's gay?
I mean, I actually like it. I think it's a nice thing to include, especially because up to that point, Star Trek really didn't have enough explicit gay, and it's just like a nice reminder that everyone belongs in Starfleet. I do think it's also kind of nice that it's not like a huge plot point. It's just kind of like a thing that is a fact about Sulu is he happens to have like a loving husband and child. Like, I like that. Yeah.
It's fine, but I just wish there was slightly more. Let's have a conversation with this guy. See who he is.
I think
Come
there
on,
was, but I think I can't remember. I might be misremembering, but I thought I heard that they had filmed more, but they wanted to make it less explicit because they were afraid or something. So they cut out like a whole.
That's sort of what
it
feels like a chicken shit move to me.
Yeah.
Like just to have him walk into his family and that's it, cut. Like, man, really? Like not a word out of his husband, not a word from his daughter. He can't include that. It feels chicken shit. But I like it, but it feels like a chicken ass.
A little bit, but that's it.
It's like when Disney makes a cop gay or something. It's like, oh, you can't be angry at them for being a cop. They're gay. Yeah, didn't see that one coming.
I mean, overall, I think it's fine.
Gay and
but
barely did anything with it.
George Takei, even original Sulu, was like, well, here's my only problem with it is that, I'm paraphrasing here, but his big problem was that he had approached Gene about this, and they couldn't get it done in the '60s. So, Sulu you couldn't be out gay. So he was like, that wasn't the character. So. Probably shouldn't, even coming from a notorious gay guy. So that's it's interesting.
Notoriously gay, Sulu.
I mean, it's not like
he's
there's
had
even
a
that
scandal or
much.
two. He's had a scandal or two. He kind of is slightly notorious, sadly. I'm sorry to say, but
out of all
There
the
are
characters in
worse people.
TOS, there's nothing that prevents you from reading that into the original Sulu if you wanted to anyways. So
Yeah, I mean, there's like hints that he likes women, but you never actually see him like with a woman.
Okay,
the closest thing is Mirror Sulu, who's straight. So
Yeah. Okay, and that guy
yeah.
is like that guy is an assaulter. I think he is the exact opposite of like Sulu. I think he's like a straight guy assaulter, and like in the actual TOS universe, our Sulu is a happy, consensual, loving gay guy.
For some reason, Ren had her cat like walk across. I thought it was a fish swimming across. I don't know why my mind's like, oh, is that a fish? Anyway, sorry.
That is one
This is
hairy
my cat
fish.
spot.
this is my fish tank studio.
And I have no idea why I attach notorious to gay or Sulu or Georgia. I think it's just because he's like he even though he came out fairly late in his life, he's had a lot of publicity around that and brought a lot of awareness to gay culture is I guess more what I was getting at, but that came out wrong.
No, I just enjoy that. I just enjoy your word choice. I wasn't calling you out.
Being notoriously gay is the dream, honestly. Like,
Okay, being that we are 3/4 of the way through this chat and we have not actually gotten to the villain, which is a significant thing in this movie, let's talk about Krall a bit.
Who?
Why doesn't he like the Federation? He doesn't like it because
Because they
I
took
got
his
lost.
jorb.
They didn't rescue me.
I just think they didn't know what the fuck was happening. I think they were just like, huh. And it seems to have gone silent. Maybe we should just give them a while. And then, time passes, and people forget. And so,
then they honor you as a hero and presume you dead. That's just how it goes.
And
it's a lot cleaner that way.
I love how close to Khan this is because, again, he has a mechanism that prolongs his life where Khan was in a freezer. This guy's a vampire. They both switched their appearances to present in the future as like a different looking person. It's they're
both a noticeable British actor that was wasted in the role.
Right. And yes, thank you. Yes. And he just seemed to just be upset that he didn't get picked up, but he had plenty of ships. So I just don't what is the problem? He could have fixed the Franklin too. What?
Yeah. Listen, as plots go, it's not good. It's oh my god.
Saint G said he didn't
This is a way better explanation than this movie should enjoy.
Right.
Was it Captain Shaw? I bet it was Captain Shaw.
No.
But this was the plot was truly awful in this movie and makes very little sense, and it's entirely forgettable. And I hate it.
His motivation could have been interesting. The idea of a warrior being left, in peacetime who couldn't get used to it's kind of like Star Trek 6 a little, but that was more just a throwaway line that they never paid any attention to.
Yes, Charisse, you're not the only one that had noticed this in previous watch-throughs. Yes, he's a space vampire. He literally drains the life out of two crewmen that they capture from the Enterprise. I did not notice that in any of my previous playthroughs. There's so many just random scenes that are barely connected, and it's weirdly paced that you can never quite pick up on all the little tiny things that are happening. And it's basically a series of action shots badly held together by some establishing shots.
It's so badly edited, especially the scene where the Enterprise is going down, because the things that come out of the actors' mouths have nothing to do with what's happening on the screen. It's like the reshoot thing just blows my mind, because that would be, to me, to fix that disparity. But they just left it in. They're like, it's fine. It's fine.
My God, I watched this movie right before we started this thing. When I saw this in theaters, I remember thinking there were large portions of it that I could not see. That I could barely tell where silhouettes were. That's bad filmmaking. And even the stuff, that's decently lit is just, there's so much going on throughout this movie. Why do we have to have so much going on? I don't understand why so much stuff has to happen. Why can't we just follow a fucking actual plot that does something that resolves?
No, it's just baffling because I swear I thought I kind of liked this movie the first time I saw it, and then I liked it less every subsequent time I saw it. But it's you press play on this movie and your brain just goes, nah. And then you get to the end and you're like, what happened? What happened in this movie?
Your brain is subconsciously protecting.
And even the action shots that they're building up to, it's so difficult to pay attention because the shaky cam, the quick cuts, the super close up, or mid-range, where it's there's so much movement in the frame that it's so difficult to follow what's happening. And then you have the cinematography where they did the Dutch angles, but even more extreme, and my stomach can't take it. My stomach can't take it.
This movie wants to be a comedy. It wants to be a paranoid thriller. It wants to be a summer blockbuster. You gotta do one of these things. You got to choose one Star Trek Beyond. You don't have time or interest in any of these things enough to make a movie.
But I think Krull's probably the worst villain. I think he's
Yes.
probably the worst.
Yeah.
Depends on the criteria. Like, I feel like Nero's a dumber villain, but I don't remember enough about Krull every time I watch this. Like, he's only in a handful of scenes. I bet if you added up this more than 2-hour movie, he's in like 10 or less minutes of it.
Mhm.
I mean,
That's funny.
it's not like
Nero-
Khan where you build up these great repertoires, but between characters, and I don't know.
I know what the hell Nero's trying to accomplish. They actually showed me something of what he's trying to accomplish. They gave me some idea of what happened to his world. Like this is just so like sketched out. Like I know that he's a soldier that was abandoned, yada yada. But just having these little videos like in the last 20 minutes of your movie, and then having one very specific shot that undermines the entire menace of your supposed villain, where they figure out who he is, and then you see Idris Elba in like a jumpsuit, and he just has the biggest, goofiest teddy bear smile you've ever seen a man smile. This is a stupid movie. Like they don't know how to like make tone function. Like
I wish that Idris Elba himself was the villain. Like if it just was him and they
Yes.
actually wrote something of substance to wrap up this trilogy.
don't
Or
make him
just,
lose
like,
his humanity.
like the good versus evil thing.
Fuck.
Whoa.
The good versus evil thing
Cap?
is a little tired.
Overstimulated so randomly.
Like having any stakes beyond we need to save the world could help.
Yeah.
Or if they even tied his motivations into some of our other characters, because they mentioned early on that like after the war they just kind of threw him a command and they just made him a captain. Like that could have been an interesting co-story with Picard, or not Picard. I would have liked Picard in this. Kirk like doubting himself, wanting to move on, maybe feeling like, well, I never deserved this captaincy because it was just thrust upon me when I was a kid. Some parallel, but no, it was just he was a mad old soldier who was able to suck life for 200 years and now has bug ships that can eat your soul. I don't know.
It gets even
Robbie,
more.
you're not you
inexplicable.
when you're hungry. Eat a Snickers.
I'm sorry, I had to watch
I feel
Star
like you
Trek Beyond instead.
So like
Go, Scott. No,
I'm
give
just
Scott a
curious about
chance.
this like vampire mechanic. Is it only this planet that allows him to do it, or is it like
I think
I
it's
think
the
it was
technology.
some kind of
I think
technology
he said
he
technology.
adapted. Maybe into his body. I don't know. None of it's explained well, and like it's just kind of in one ear out the other. Like I vaguely remember him explaining the mechanics of it, but I can't tell you the details.
There are 6 people here,
And that's
and
another
no
thing.
one could pay attention enough to this movie.
Yeah, and like
Mhm.
I watched it at the same time. Like Robbie was like 30 minutes behind me watching this movie. Like we both
Yes.
watched it right before this, and we're both like, things happened.
According
Don't
to
remember what they were.
according to the internet, his powers stem from an ancient energy transference technology that was left on the planet by the ancient ones.
Thank
Sounds
you.
There are
good.
ancient ones?
Very
What?
good. Jesus.
Scott, you've been trying to say something for the last
Yes.
2 minutes.
But he couldn't send a distress call powerful enough for Starfleet to reach.
Go ahead, Scotty.
Hard.
So why would Krull even
I
need the
would. Man, I'm
mask?
lagging like crazy. No, what I'm trying to say
Go
is that like the way this lines up with like, I swear he said, or they said his ship went missing around 2160. That's like the end of Enterprise, or thereabouts, and that he had like the first ship that was capable of warp 4. So he's lost somewhere, sends out a distress call, but like nobody can get to him because there's a dearth of ships. But that's what pisses him off, and I don't get that because he's got to know at that point that this is actually pre-Starfleet, so the resources available to even look for him have to be limited. But he's just like, no, instead I'm going to take this technology and become a psychic vampire.
But it has to be after that because he said he fought the Zindi War and the Romulan War, and he was there for the founding of the Federation when Makos were made obsolete. So this would have to be well after that.
Yeah, there's several things there that don't make sense. Plus,
Oh,
the
yeah.
NX
Yeah,
is like
that's cool.
156 or something. And the Enterprise is NX-01 and the first 4-5 ships. So, yeah, a lot of that doesn't make any sense.
Chronotons.
What? God. Those are delicious. Do not put down the name of chronotons.
It was Ronan with the Chronotons in the ballroom.
Ooh. Worst episode, Star Trek Clue.
So why would Krall even need the mass destruction weapon with all of his mini ships that can just, like tear through other ships with reckless abandon?
My answer is just a weary sigh.
That's a really good point.
I don't know. Maybe you just can't have enough. Maybe you just gotta have like unlimited taps, like some crazy capitalist or something. I don't know.
Because he always wanted one as a kid, and nostalgia is a powerful thing.
Okay, that makes sense. I'm glad you figured it out because I sure as hell couldn't figure that out watching this.
Not trying to have a discussion about the artifact, because I don't even understand why Kirk did, and the whole crew was like, no, we got to protect the artifact. For what? Why? They don't even know what it's for. So it's like, and then they get it and then they stick it in this machine and it's like, ooh, we can air fry people instantly. Like, so who cares? Like, we can do that with the silly ass ships anyway.
But we already cured death last movie, and we can beam across the galaxy, so it seems like that's not required anymore.
So what song would you use to destroy the swarm? And I think it would just be appropriate to be a one-off Beastie Boy song. Let's go with Intergalactic.
Yeah, but then that plays through to the very last line, which is, hold on, I know this. You need to start shaking, your fingers pop like a pinch to the neck from Mr. Spock, and Spock's gonna look up like, what the fuck?
Fascinating. And then the universe just explodes.
I'd probably be cliched and do like "Don't Stop Me Now" by Queen.
Ooh,
Nice.
I'd rather hear that song. Oh man, I'd rather hear that song.
John Cage's 433. That'll knock their socks off.
You know what? If we're going to talk about classical music, can we get some like Velvet Underground or something? Like, can we get something that has like personality that hasn't been driven into the ground by commercials for the last 25 years? Like, I don't know. I don't like that song anymore at all because I've just been completely destroyed by exposure to Beastie Boys Sabotage, and that was
Well,
before
we
this
need
movie
brand
came
synergy.
out.
So
I
the
think my
record.
real
like,
answer
I just
might be like
saw-
System of a Down Aerials or something.
I really enjoyed what was it? I just saw Final Destination, the new one, in IMAX, by the way.
Tony Todd?
Okay.
Yeah,
Is
that
it
was
good?
great. Tony Todd was amazing.
Ooh.
Such a heartbreaking goodbye. He knew that it was going to be his last scene. They played Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head when bodies are falling down from this sky tower. So like Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head would probably be a good.
Because what? It's Raining Men would have been too on the nose.
They should have done It's Raining Men and then transitioned into Let the Bodies Hit the Floor.
Not oh my god, yes. Not time period appropriate, Scott. This the flashback was like in the 60s or something, so
Well,
I have
yes.
one that isn't time period appropriate, but I think it would work for like, the Boys Having Feelings movie this could be if it was a good movie. And that's The Boys Are Back in Town. Like, because once you get everybody, corralled and you actually go into the action scene, the boys are back in town. Like,
They
What's
could have put them
the-
all putting on the jackets. getting
What's the
dressed up.
song?
Yeah, dance right, man.
What's the song that they play in First Contact when they're rocketing into space?
Magic Carpet Ride.
Yeah.
Magic Carpet Ride.
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah,
All right, we've been here an hour. Normally, I would transition us to out of tens, but there's one question I feel like we have to ask. If you were going to save this movie, what would you change? Yeah, right? I know, that's an easy question. It's like, it's
We're
just
going
one
to be here
thing.
another half hour.
Most of the movie, I think. I think I would write a completely different plot that involves them, seeking out new life, new civilization, maybe boldly going where no one has gone before a little bit.
Right, not just silly.
I'd probably, have them help some aliens with some kind of like diplomatic problem that would ultimately be like a misunderstanding that the Federation helps them like solve. Like I don't know. I'd spend way more time on like the interpersonal stuff between the characters. Like sure there could be some action, but like I feel like they keep making these movies with like action fans in mind specifically. And I would want it to be focused on like Star Trek fans and what Star Trek fans typically want from Star Trek, which is more philosophical and like optimistic and like interesting.
I want a better
So-
written villain. If I get to change
Oh, yeah.
one thing, I'm going to change the writing on the villain of Kral.
I'd go so far as to say we don't need a villain. I know all the Star Trek films think you need a villain, but
Most
I
of
would
them, anyway.
I would more like to just save some of the elements from it, which is I like the concept of our crew getting split up into these different groups, seeing them get the
True.
interplay, especially if they're going to do it with like team ups we don't see so often. Like Spock and McCoy was great, but like throw Chekhov in there with who did Chekhov get teamed up with? It was Kirk, I guess. Sort of, and I would keep the Jayla stuff, at least some of the Jayla stuff. We haven't talked about her at all, but I kind of liked her. The bones of what she could have added to Star Trek had they really gone with her role.
Yeah, we
I
didn't
would've-
even get to
I-
get into her, but I like her a lot too. She's one of the things that works for the movie. Go ahead,
There's
Vanessa.
there's a couple things that I liked. I actually liked the very first scene with the diplomacy thing. I feel like that story could have been fleshed out more. It was just sort of dropped because all it was about was that stupid artifact. And the relationships on with the crew and everything. Like, why can't we get to know these people a little bit better within the framework of a diplomatic issue, brokering peace between two worlds, an incredibly Star Trek thing, and they just drop it like a hot potato. Like, I think I would like to know more about these little goblin guys. They seem nice.
If I can only change one thing with the movie I have to work with here, we are cutting out the jokey nonsense, we're cutting out the unprofessionalism, and we're turning this into a paranoid thriller about a crew of people who are on the edge of their sanity being plunged into a desperate situation with a madman. They completely ruined an opportunity for an amazing villain. An amazing actor was cast in a role that has nothing to it. What he should be doing, like monologues. He should be making like big grand gestures and presenting threats that go beyond his minions just being like threatening and mean and having a little mining quality. This movie like wastes what it actually should be, which is a paranoid thriller.
Yeah, you actually just
Okay.
gave me an idea. Instead of him being bent on destruction, what if his ship crashed 200 years ago? He's been kept alive, but he's now kind of running this society of the little goblin people, and they have to do that whole ethical decision of, the Federation now comes in and it's kind of one of their own who's put in the position as a ruler, and it's against the Prime Directive, blah blah blah.
Kind of like Randall 7.
If I could only change one thing, that's a completely different conversation.
Change the fact that you ever watched it.
Yeah, honestly.
Smart.
Yeah, I think if I could only change a single thing, I would just take out a bunch of the nonsense action scenes that don't actually need to be there so that we can put in more character moments, because that's the thing that actually worked about the movie at all, was the interactions between the characters. And like the action just wasn't honestly that interesting, at least to me. Like it was kind of essentially the same thing over and over, which is like big dramatic explosive chase scene again and again, which is like fine but not very interesting.
All right, Scott, did you have anything? I think you were the only one that didn't give one, or
No.
all right. We are good, despite like this is the least. We didn't have that many questions, and we didn't even get through half of them today. We had so much to say about how bad this movie was, and I'm still having trouble as we go into our out of tens here, deciding. I went into this thinking it was 0.75. I was going to give half a point for Jayla and a quarter point for the final CGI building of the Enterprise A. That's really cool. I dig that, even if I don't want to see another Kelvin movie set on the Enterprise A. But it occurred to me, my feelings are more complex about this, at least versus the last movie, which I don't even remember what I gave last week. It was either like a 2.5
or I think.
It was somewhere in
Or
the twos,
2.75,
because
something
it was
in there.
yeah, it was
2.5.
like it was less than 5, well, or Star Trek 5, but better than the motion picture. And honestly, I'm like, I don't think this is better than those, but here's my problem. If I gave that 2.5, there are no single scenes in that I'm like, wow, that was a really good scene. There are some that are passable, but this movie actually has a couple of scenes I really like especially the stuff between Bones and Spock. Almost everything with Jayla I like. It's got some good moments, but also the plot is more meandering and worthless than any of the other Star Trek movies ever. Like this makes Section 31 looks like an absolute masterpiece. So, God, I can't give it a 2. I think the worst thing I gave was Insurrection, like 1.75, and I don't think it even lives up to that. Just because the plot doesn't follow, but it's almost. I'm gonna give it a 1.5. Go ahead, Rob.
Okay. Yeah. I think the lowest score I've given to anything on here is for the motion picture, and I think that was a 4 or 4.5. I didn't get to show up last week for Into Darkness, and I want to go ahead and give that a quick 0 out of 0. Hack bullshit. I fucking hate that goddamn movie. And I want to give this a 3 because this movie insults me. It insults me at every moment, almost every moment that exists. And I don't think I've hated a Star Trek movie quite like I hate this one. I mean, I just feel like every other Star Trek movie has villains or something. Even the movie before this has a villain that you can latch on to. Like, I mean, they took a hold of the greatest Star Trek villain ever, and I think this movie is better than that because it's not like just hack nonsense. Like, it's actually trying to create a villain, and it stumbles into good scenes with good chemistry because all of the people working on this are generally professionals, and the cast is amazing, but it doesn't have a tone, and it doesn't create an identity for itself, and it loses, like, the joy of having the boys back together doing stuff. That doesn't make up for the fact that all its female characters aren't formed out in any level. Uhura's just a prop for Spock again, pretty much. She doesn't feel like anything that matters in this movie. I mean, that's a major sin you should hold against it. You should hold against all the Kelvin-verse stuff. You sideline one of your most intensely professional Starfleet members. This movie is just a big fat fucking headache. I don't recommend it to anyone, but I'll give it a 3 because there's some amazing special effects, even if this movie is just crowded and crowded and crowded in special effects. Like, this is still the work of people doing an amazing job, and the cast is incredible. Yeah, that's the best I can do.
Yeah, actually, I agree with Robbie. I'm also going to give it a 3. I like it slightly better than Into Darkness because, as Dustin said, I think it does have some of the best moments of these 3 movies. But moments do not a movie make when they're not strung together with a plot that makes any goddamn sense. I I went into this movie like wanting to like it every time I watched it, and the fact that no matter how many times I watch it, I can't make myself pay attention. And I'm not usually a person like I have ADHD, but my attention span is usually like somewhat manageable when I'm watching something. But this movie, it's like my kryptonite. I can't absorb it. And I think it wastes, I think like the entire trilogy, it wastes some fantastic casting. I think it wastes a lot of great jokes. I think it wastes a lot of potential for really strong character development between the characters. And it's just a bummer. It's hard not to be mad at this movie and this trilogy for all the things it's not. And there's so little of what it is that appeals to me that it's hard for me to give it any kind of better rating than that. Like, yeah, it is a movie, technically. I have a hard time even saying it's watchable because I don't remember it.
Nadia's comment here, Josh, sounds a lot like what you were saying earlier in our chat.
Yeah, so kind of following from that whole I don't remember it is not having watched this movie in quite some time. I don't think I'd watched any of the Kelvinverse movies since either when Discovery and all the new shows started, or at least since very early on in that time frame. So this is my first time going back to them since we've had so much new Star Trek on our screens. So the whole visuals being the thing that are really driving these, which I think, the Kelvinverse was a big spectacle, and look how pretty Star Trek can be when we give it a budget, doesn't hold as much water as it used to, because a lot of these newer shows are putting so much into the effects, sometimes detrimentally, because you don't need those effects to make a great story. Sometimes it can get in the way. But I think that was one of the big selling points at the time. And similar to how there's just so much action going on, when I think back to this movie and I think back to Into Darkness, I don't remember liking anything from Into Darkness. I remember liking things about this movie, but like the 3 or 4 things that stood out in my memory are really the only 3 or 4 things in this movie that are worth watching. Like when I thought back, I'm like, oh yeah, this has Jayla. Oh yeah, this has that reference to the Enterprise ship, or the cool character moments down on the planet where we get the teams split up. Those are the only really things I remembered, and there's nothing else here besides expansive spectacle that at a certain point, whether or not it wowed you at the time it came out, I don't think it holds the test of time at all. And some of it just drags on way too long. That ship being destroyed crashing scene, if you're not emotionally invested in it, it's just an enormous waste of money, waste of time, waste of CG explosions, whatever it was. There's nothing there to really invest you into just wanting to stick with it. So it's probably gone down in my estimation a little bit from where it was before, because I had held it as like this grand return after the mess of Into Darkness, and watching them back to back now, Into Darkness doesn't have much redeeming as far as storyline either, but at least that one, I guess, had a more coherent storyline. But this one is just things happen, and then a couple of sprinkled in moments that actually feel good. So probably for the things I do like, a 3.5, I guess. I don't anticipate watching it again anytime soon.
For me, the worst Star Trek movie of all time is Section 31. That to me is like the gold standard for terrible Star Trek movie because it has everything mechanically wrong with it. It's incoherent. The editing's terrible. Cinematography's terrible. Characters I don't care about. Plot's really hard to follow. That being said, it was a series condensed into a movie. This doesn't have that problem. So why does it have the same issues? It's clear that
The answer isn't budget.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And it's clear that there are so many plot threads that were cut off, and you could see the vestiges of those things, like Sulu just walking away and dialogueless interaction with his family, the interaction with Chekhov and that green person in the bedroom, there's just these little bits of like there's something more there that they removed for some reason, and I feel like there's a much better movie underneath this. This to me had a lot of the flaws of the first JJ movie, so I'm giving it a 2. I can't with the cinematography. I get motion sickness. I can't.
Okay. Now you get some decent character moments, and I suppose I did like hearing Sabotage in more of its entirety. I got to admit, it kind of got me how it was perfectly timed when the station started broadcasting the song as well, and the swarm's all blowing against it just at the point of the song when it's like, wow! And seeing the Franklin such as it was, an NX-class ship, I mean, nothing wrong with that. And, yeah, we didn't talk about Jilla much as a character, but... I might change this. But I enjoyed her for what she will be, too. It's just that those are very few things buried in the rest of just this inexplicable nonsense. So in the end, I was gonna say 3, but no, I'm gonna drop that to a 2.5.
Oh, crap. I actually was thinking about it. I think the stuff, where we actually have like the boys getting together, having some feelings, I think that's good enough to just add another half point on, but that's still only a 3.5.
Robbie, you're killing me here.
I was going to say, you just pissed
Trying to keep
Scott
score,
off.
man.
Speaking of the dropped points and the Chekhov thing, did Anton die after filming was completed or while they were still making this? Okay.
No, it was after. I think it was like a full year after.
Well, because they had in the credits of this movie like for Anton or whatever. So they
I didn't see that.
They had like in memory of Leonard Nimoy and then for Anton.
Though that could have come on like the subsequent releases.
Oh, I guess
I'm not sure. Yeah. I'm not sure.
I was just wondering
if
a
little while after, but I might be wrong.
I'm gonna Google it.
We have a magic box that tells us things.
I don't know, St. G.
Same
I think
year. He died in June 2016, and the movie came out in July 2016. So they had a month.
Right, so it was before.
Credits.
All right.
Pretty close.
Yeah. That's so sad.
Very tragic. My favorite Chekhov, to be honest. Incredibly terrible loss.
He's perfect.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah, I don't want to see Chekhov in Strange New Worlds, but I would love to see somebody like Rand or I would definitely like Kyle to come back. That really bothered me that he wasn't in season 2 at all after they set up this like big emotions arc for him where he watched somebody die or had to make the choice to like close the bulkhead and somebody like died right in front of him in season 1. I thought they were going to like address some some trauma there, and unfortunately we didn't come back to it, but we'll see.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind to see like a Gary Mitchell, but I don't know if the other Mitchell's supposed to be taking his place.
Oh, hell yeah.
And of course, is so good.
My dream TAS crossover of Doug Jones as Barracks and Susie Plaxton as Maress, just one episode cameo.
Oh my God, Susie Plaxton as Maress. No.
Yes.
That would be awesome.
And then they just go to the lower decks, never to be seen again.
All right, so we did it. We got through all 13, 14 movies if you include Strange New Worlds or Section 31 when we did that. We've done all the movies. Oh my god, we can move on.
We can movie
Yeah.
on.
So
I'm so
over
glad
the
you
next-
guys kept me from having a stroke over this thing. It's a terrible movie.
we all had the same basic thoughts here. Like, it has some shining moments, but also just it has a lot wrong with it, and especially for $184 million. That's all. That's too much money to have the kind of problems that this did.
Like, most people can't even conceive of that amount of money. Never mind earn that in their entire lifetime. And to
That's
think
a
that it's
Scrooge
even
McDuck
used
pull.
on this is just insane to me.
Breaking
That's
news: Star
Scrooge
Trek
McDuck
4 is
magic.
officially announced. No.
Oh,
All right.
what?
So yes,
Oh.
next week we now that we're coming off the movies, I think we need to do something that everybody in Star Trek likes, something a little more low key. I did want to do originally Of Gods and Men, the fan made Tim Russ directed Star Trek movie, but I think we'll put that off till the fall because next week we'll do The Inner Light. That is episode 99 of Buffer Time, which means the week after is our 100th episode. Vanessa, I think it was your idea to just we all talk about why we like Star Trek and put some questions. You know, you guys have been saying we've been too negative. I think we're going to spend our 100th episode talking up all the good things about Star Trek. So, positive stuff is coming, I promise. Let's do The Inner Light, which I mean, I know is some people's like favorite episode ever. I have some negatives about it.
I have a side.
But I also
copy
understand
script
why
of
it's
that
great.
episode.
Oh my god.
Nice.
Yeah, I
That's
met Morgan
incredible.
Gendal at Comic-Con. He was really nice. He had like a little booth and he was selling his scripts in the artist alley, so I had him
Aw.
sign one. It was awesome.
Oh.
I love that episode.
There are 4 inner lights.
There are 5, Josh.
Oh, my bad.
Good.
All right. So that's what it looks like, and then we usually take June and July off here because not a lot of you watch, and like all of us do things over the summer. So we like to take some time off, but I guess we have a Strange New Worlds season to talk about right in the middle of summer, coming the 17th. So look for us doing that, but we will probably take a break from June into July until that starts. So that's what's coming up with us. And I would like to thank all of my co-hosts here. We might have more here coming in the near future now that we can have up to 15 people on screen at the same time. And to all of you who tuned in. And until we see you again,